I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Speak My Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always, actually, I'm not going to start off that way. Before we do jump into anything, I do want to send my condolences to the lives that were lost and those who were injured and the families of those affected by the mass shootings this past week. Someone earlier told me that there was 4. I only counted 3, so if there was a 4th, then I forgot about it. Definitely want to include them in this list. But the mass shootings I'm referring to are the one in Buffalo, the one in Milwaukee, and the last one was, I believe, in Laguna Woods in Southern California. So if there was a 4th and I missed it, I apologize, but it's heartbreaking. I've spoken about the topic of gun control laws, mass shootings, how the treatment in law enforcement and how they treat the perpetrators. I've spoken about these things many a times, and so I'm not going to delve into it in this episode. Not to say that these three incidents of the past week are insignificant to the prior mass shootings or the prior domestic terrorist attacks, but it's just only so much I can say. But my heart goes out to all those affected, especially those in Buffalo, New York. Like, this demonic, racist person drove, I believe, 200 miles to carry out a racist attack. Specifically chose a predominantly black neighborhood and took the lives of many people as they were out Sunday grocery shopping or just out and about enjoying the city. I believe the death toll in Buffalo was 10. The youngest person was 32, and the next person close to him, I believe, was 50 something, and everybody else was 50 and over. So just imagine that your aunt, your great aunt, your uncle, your great uncle, your parent, your grandparent, out and about on a Sunday, could possibly have been leaving church, just running errands, and their life is taken by this demonic person carrying out these attacks. My heart goes out to everyone who was affected by these tragedies this past week. As we begin this episode, and start this episode off with a moment of silence for those who were affected. Also, I want to send a very happy birthday to the late Malcolm X. If you're an avid listener of this podcast, you know how big of a fan, how much of an inspiration Malcolm X is to me in creating this platform and carrying on this platform and the topics we speak on this platform. So I'll be remiss if I did not share love every time an episode aligns with his birthday or February 21st. And if you're not an avid listener, you're going to find out soon enough just how much of an inspiration he is to this podcast. But again, happy birthday to Malcolm X, because this episode is releasing on May 19th, so I'll be remiss if I did not start this way. I'm usually, for my YouTube viewers, I'm usually wearing my Black Malcolm X tee on February 21st episodes and May 19th episodes. I'm not wearing it this episode for a very special reason, because I want to commemorate, I want to detail a very special time, and that special time being the release of Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's a very monumental time because for me, this is the end of an era. This album marked his last release on Top Dog Entertainment. I've been listening to Kendrick Lamar since 2007. And so Kendrick Lamar and Top Dog Entertainment is synonymous for me. When I think Kendrick Lamar, I think of the label. When I think of the label, first person that comes to mind, Kendrick Lamar. So for those two entities to be separating, it's a very big moment. I'm glad that it's happening amicably. I'm glad that there's no drama attached to it. I'm glad there's no rumors and no nasty stuff. I'm glad that people from my neighborhood, from our town, can show people how to do business. Show people that you can amicably split professionally. You don't have to be no subtweet. You don't have to be no sub Instagram posts. It don't have to be no rumors of this person did that. It don't have to be no legal proceedings or things like that. It can literally just be elevation. Because at the end of the day, you know, as fans of music, fans of rap, this is what we want to see from our favorite artists. I want to see Kendrick Lamar venture out and start his own label after being a part of this label for so many years. This is an elevation that I want to see. It's sad to see the separation happen, but this is what I want to see. I saw the best rapper alive do it in Jay-Z. For so many years of his career, Jay-Z was synonymous with Rockefeller. They split up. That wasn't as professional as this one was, but they split up. And now Jay-Z is a owner of his own label. And that label has branched into many other different things. These are things we want to see, especially with examples of black men and ownership and owning things right now. This is what we need to see, especially in music, to where our people have been taken advantage of so many times. Go back in history, the past 100 years, where our people have been taken advantage of. I'm glad to see that we are taking ownership in things like this. Another reason why this episode is dedicated to this album is because just the album in itself is so incredible. I do want to disclaim this episode is not going to be an album review episode. This episode is not going to be an album review episode. This episode is not going to be an album review episode. I feel like I have to drive that point home because I don't want to be speaking about certain songs and then you all be like, oh, well, you didn't cover this song or you didn't do that. Like, this is not what we're doing. I'm not doing deep dives on the entire album. I'm not uncovering Easter eggs on the album. I am not covering all things that were covered in the album. I'm not doing that. There will come a time later to where I do have a platform under this media to where I am reviewing albums and songs and things like that. But Speak on Peace podcast is not that place. But one thing I love about great albums is the many layers that great albums have. One example I can think of is I'll say my favorite album from my favorite rapper, Lupe Fiasco's The Cool. This album released 2008, I believe. It was either 2008 or late 2007. I don't know why, I don't remember. I think it was 2008. Actually, it was December 2007. December 2007, this album released. The album in itself is a great album to me. On the surface, the lyricism is there. The content is there. The theme, the story of the album behind the album is one you don't see too many times in music too much now as far as concept albums. The features are great. The singles are great. They aren't too poppy. They aren't too radio-y. It's true to who the artist is. It's a great album within itself. But the album is a concept album, so there's many layers to the album. What may be beyond the surface is not all there is to the album. I remember listening to a song, I think it was last year, no, it was like 2 years ago. I listened to a song on this album and texted my brother because I was blown away because I finally understood what the song was about. And it was mind-blowing. For those of you who want to reference what the song is, go listen to Gotta Eat by Lupe Fiasco. And if you find out from the first listen, then I'm an idiot. But it took me, I listened to the album and listened to the songs on this album probably like 30,000 times. And it took me that long to finally understand what the song was about. I knew what the song was about, but the song in itself is a double entendre, meaning there's a double meaning to the song. And so I got the first meaning, but didn't realize there was a second meaning and a second perspective. And so that blew my mind away. And I remember texting my brother when I figured that out. And I was like, I don't know why I've listened to the song this many times and did not know that. Not to get off topic, but that is an example. Another example is, since we're speaking about Kendrick, to Pimp a Butterfly. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say that name. To Pimp a Butterfly. That is another album that gives me that same type of feeling. On the surface, To Pimp a Butterfly is one of the rare albums that I listened to in the first listens and determined that it was great, just by my standards. And as I listened to it more, it got better and better. And that is an album that I can revisit today and still uncover more things that I did not uncover the first 500 times I listened to it. Aside from it being a great album in itself, the layers that I'm uncovering as I continue to listen to it makes it even greater. And that is what this album is, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Like, it was a good album on the first listen. On the fifth listen, it kind of began to transition that tipped that border of good to great. But I understood that what I was listening to, I wasn't fully developing what he was covering with these topics and the things that he was rapping about in this album. And still to this day, I probably listened to the album since it was released, probably, no exaggeration, 50, 60 times. And there's still things that I know that I have not picked apart yet. And I love that. I love learning new things. I love figuring out new things down the line while still being able to enjoy the craft of what's being offered to me. The timing in which this album was released is great. Kendrick Lamar has been away for 5 years. His last studio album release was 2017 when he released Damn. And so for 5 years, we haven't got a studio project from him. And we get this album, which to me, I kind of look at it as a play. I'll get into it later in this episode. But this album, he releases it in May. May is a month of mental health awareness. And it plays out, the album to me plays out as a therapy session. It plays out as someone's journey as they're going through therapy, they're seeking therapy and bettering themselves and going down this journey of healing, going down this journey of self-discovery, going down this journey of awareness and accountability. This is what this album is to me. It kind of like, it seems like a play. I don't know how many of you, my listeners have been to plays, been on Broadway, off Broadway, New York, wherever. I don't know how many of y'all have seen plays, but it reminds me of a play. It reminds me of someone going through a journey of life and detailing the struggles, detailing their peaks and valleys as they are going through there. Strategically, he's placing the big steppers in the album as well. You hear the tap dancing in certain specific parts of the album. That to me reminds me of a play. It's like we're on the surface value, we get the actor in the front, and the actor in the front, it has this monologue and they're speaking about the things they're going through, and through the different scenes we see what they are dealing with. And then we have these, let's say the tap dancers, we call it the big steppers, the tap dancers. We have these tap dancers in the background, which could be the actual things that keep reoccurring, the childhood trauma. What else he covered? The father, the daddy issues that he covers, the infidelities in a relationship, his addiction to sex, his addiction to alcohol, him stepping away from fame, him gaining fame, him being on a journey to fame, homophobia, transphobia. So many different things are covered in this album that I missed just now and then listening to all, because I'm not going to list it all. But there's so many things that are covered in this album that are so important. This album, the reason why I'm dedicating this episode to this album, because it's like, it's perfect. It's perfect in alignment with season 5 of the Speak One Piece podcast. I've detailed things in this podcast, and I will continue to detail things in the podcast of things that I've been going through, things that I've been dealing with. And as I said, this is one of my most vulnerable seasons to date, the most vulnerable season to date. Just in the things I've been detailing with you all. But it was perfect that I received this album at this point in my life. I did, rather than any other time, because I had ever received this album a year earlier, I wouldn't have fully understood it. But because I am on my own journey, the same type of journey that he's detailing within this album, I can appreciate it a little bit more because I know exactly what he's talking about. And so that, I would be remiss if I didn't use an episode of the Speak One Piece podcast to speak about it. And there are many other albums that have affected me greatly in the past that I didn't speak about, but I felt like this one was perfectly in alignment. One of those albums I can think about is last year, Luke's Goldmouth. Another one of those great albums that I felt like it really hit home for me. It's the expressions, the feelings and the details and the things that overcame me while listening to that album. Even still to this day, listen to that album. It hits home. Wale's Wild That's Crazy, another one of those albums. Even more recently, Vince Staples, Ramona Park Broke My Heart. That's in contention for album of the year for me. Right now I have Ramona Park Broke My Heart 1A, and I have Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers to 1B. These are my two favorite rap albums at the moment for this year. But when you get an album that evokes emotions like that from you, it's a great feeling. And that is what this album is doing for me. It reminded me how I got here to this season. I detailed episode 98, 99, the different things I was going through that led me to that long hiatus in between season 4 and season 5. And a lot of those things that I was going through, a lot of those things I was dealing with are the same things that I kind of hear playing out in this album. This album is so important because we are seeing someone who's at the top of their game we're seeing someone who's heralded as one of the best to do it at the moment, and probably will go down as one of the best to ever do it. And to see someone at such a high status, someone in such a regal status, to be so open and to be so vulnerable with us, it's powerful. Mental health, especially within the Black community, it has been a stigma. And that stigma is slowly but surely being erased because we're seeing more people speak about it. We're seeing more people with stature speak about it. We're seeing more everyday people like me speak about it. And because these conversations are continuously happening, I feel like more people are more open to exploring seeking help and seeking guidance and addressing things that have affected them, addressing things that have taken tolls on their mentals. So to see Kendrick Lamar, someone who comes from the same background as me, see someone who is one of the best at his craft, to see someone who is a superstar, someone who's a megastar, to speak about these things, it's powerful. It lets me know that the journey I embarked upon this season of the podcast was a journey that was needed, because we need to hear the accounts of different things like this. And let me say this: seeking help, seeking guidance for mental health is not an easy process. Like my personal process, it took me like 10 months, not even 10 months, it took me like 11 months to finally settle upon a counselor. I had been looking on and off all of 2021, starting in January, and I didn't have my first counseling session until late November, I believe. And so I spent most of last year on and off looking for a counselor. Partially, the reason why that journey for me was so long is because I didn't want to go into a situation where I didn't really feel comfortable with the person I was speaking with. And so my vetting process was more extensive than what, an average person, not even that. My vetting process was just very extensive. And I'm just leave it at that. It was very extensive. And so because of that, I was on and off of my journey and finding someone. I may see someone and may have rare reviews about someone and may have wanted to go with them, and maybe their schedules didn't align with mine. Maybe they didn't have any availability for the times that I wanted, wherever the case may be. And so I just decided not to go with them. And so this process was on and off for 10, 11 months throughout the year until I finally settled upon someone. But another thing, just for the average listener, the average person may be thinking about embarking upon a journey as well. Finances is another thing for most people that hinder them from doing so. But there are resources out there to get free services. There are resources out there to get services that fit your budget and different things like that. That's something that hinders a lot of people from also going. You may think about like, okay, I'm gonna finally do this. You find out the prices, you're like, all right, I'm not gonna do this. Don't let that discourage you. Know that there are resources out there to get something that fits your budget. And all you have to do is look. If you're interested and you want me to relay some of those resources, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll relay that to you all. Reach out to me at speakmypeacepod@gmail.com or DM me on my Instagram at speakmypeacepod. Is my Instagram is speakmypeacepod. I don't know why I just forgot my Instagram. But no, don't let anything hinder you on your journey, because this stigma within our community is something that we have to continue to tear down. Another reason why my journey took me so long is because I was looking for a specific person. I was looking for a Black woman. I didn't want anyone else but a Black woman. I didn't want a woman. I didn't want a man. I didn't want a Black man. I wanted a Black woman, because I knew that if I went into a situation with a Black woman and speaking about and detailing my things, I will feel comfortable. I will feel safe. In my life, from childhood to now, my protector has been a Black woman. And so I am able to be myself around Black women because of the example of protection I received from a Black woman. In my life, my entire life, my nurturer has been a Black woman. And so I can go into these sessions and be myself because I may feel at home because of and not saying that I'm looking for these two people in my counselor, but because of the past experience I had with nurturing and someone helping me, and that being an example of a Black woman, I am more loose and I am more free and more open to finding out whether or not I can trust this person, or I can relay this information to this person, and this person can help me. In general, I would have just wanted a black person. I feel like if you don't understand where I come from, if you don't understand my background, if you don't understand the things that I go through in my life, you can't relate to me, I don't want to be open to you, because I then start to second guess your judgment. I then start to second guess your practices with different things like that. And so I specifically look for a black woman for that purpose, because I just don't trust black men. I'm gonna be honest with you. Many times in my life, I have been let down by black men. And I'm not saying that to bash black men. I'm a black man myself, so I obviously think highly of black men because I'm think highly of myself. But just my personal experience in my life, your experience may be different. But black men have let me down many a times in my life. When I think about from childhood to teenage to adulthood, my growth and my development, the things that I required as I began to age and mature, black men have failed me in that instance, in those situations. Again, not saying this to bash black men as a whole, but just knowing that who I am at this age and what I can look back on my life and think about things that I've missed and things that I wish that I had. Those were times for black men to step in. I did have great examples of black men. I have many great examples of black men around me. But when I think about that constant figure, when I think about that constant person in my life, that constant person to give me guidance, black men felt me in that instance. Again, not all black men, but I just think about just a broad to general perspective in that I did not have that. And so I didn't really want to seek out. That was my last resort, because I knew for sure that if I did want to go through this, the person has to be black, but I just wanted a black woman just in general. And if I couldn't find a black woman and I felt like time was prolonging, then I was going to settle upon a black man. Thankfully, I didn't. I found a black woman. So the network that I went through, I had to take this quiz. This quiz asked me many questions. It asked me why I was seeking counseling, asked me what type of counseling styles did I prefer, and you get to choose how many of her answers you want to choose, and it details the different counseling styles. If you don't know the exact different counseling styles that they're listing out, it details those. I think I already said they ask what you're having trouble with. It asks you if you're looking for a specific ethnicity of a counselor. It asks you if you're looking for a specific gender, and I filled all these things out to the best of my ability to get the best that I wanted. So for once you get that quiz, it gives you recommendations on the counselors within their network. It also asks you your budget as well, I should say that. And so based on all those questions that it asks you, it gives you recommendations. It gives you 3 recommendations: first, second, and then third. The first is like the closest based on all your recommendations, maybe off 1, maybe off 2 of your answers. The one in that one I missed, I don't remember if in ethnicity I specifically chose black or if I chose minority. I think I chose minority, and so they gave me a minority, but it just wasn't a black woman, so I didn't go with that first one. But most of the other boxes that I checked off, she fit the profile of that. The second one missed more. It also wasn't a black woman, but also missed more of those boxes. And then the third one was a black woman. I forget how many boxes she checked off, but after like reading her bio and reading reviews and different things like that, I felt like this was a person that I wanted to at least try to go through counseling sessions with. So from there, from there, we scheduled a consultation. This consultation is free. And basically the consultation is a feeling process. Me detailing the different things that I feel like I need help with along the line, the reason why I reached out to the network, and me finding out my counselor's counseling style. And within that 15-minute session, you get to determine, whether or not this is the person you want to move forward with. Within my 15-minute session, I knew exactly that was the person I was going to move forward with. I felt like the rapport was there. The relatability was there, just from different backgrounds that we've had. But also felt at home, and me not getting too in depth with the things I needed help with, but just being on the surface of things I needed help with, and her identifying different patterns and different things like that. It was something that I felt that I could move forward with. So I knew from that 15-minute counseling session that was a person I was going to move forward with. And so since then, I've been on a 7-month journey of healing. I've been on a 7-month journey of forgiveness, forgiving myself, finding myself, growing, elevating, developing myself. and also just, building new habits. And that journey has been an eye-opening experience. And so when I listen to this album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I'm seeing the same thing. It's like a parallel journey. I'm hearing Kendrick. The first words we're hearing when the album opens is, I hope you find a peace. It's a melody. I hope you find a peace of mind. I hope you find paradise. Then you hear his wife telling him, encouraging him to tell them, be honest, be truthful. And then the next voice you hear is Kendrick. He's speaking about the many days he's been away from his last album to this album and detailing that he's been going through things. And then as the album goes along, he details the different things that he's gone through. That is powerful. That vulnerability from a black man, it's extremely powerful. And so to hear this played out over dope beats and dope and great raps and great melodies, it's, I'm about to say music to your ears, but it is music, so it is music to your ears. But it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful example to be laid out. I don't think that this album was despite the critical acclaim that it's getting already, it's going to be an album that a lot of people are not going to get until they go through certain journeys in their life, and that's fine. But on the surface, a lot of people appreciate some of these songs. A lot of people appreciate this album. Like, I haven't heard too many people downplay this album or say this album wasn't good. I think the younger generation, they may feel the way it may not be as hard as a whoever, but they still appreciate certain songs on the album. And that's the beauty in great music, is it's good on the surface, but there's more to discover to make it even greater. And then when you're able to relate to it, it makes that even greater. And that is why I'm so happy that this came at this point in my life, to where I didn't have to go through what I'm already going through to really appreciate it. We don't, as black people, we don't do too much of really addressing these things. And so to hear him speak about childhood trauma, to hear him speak about seeing his friend of his buried at 9, to hear him speak about sexual assault within his family, to hear him speak about infidelities with his wife, or his fiance. I don't know if it's fiance or his wife. To hear him speak about the tough love and the issues he had with his father growing up, despite his father being a present father. To hear him detail these different things, it's encouraging. And I hope that you are experiencing the same thing that I'm experiencing. This podcast has shaped me for the better to be a different person throughout these past almost 4 years. I started this off just speaking about things that I wanted to speak about. I didn't have a platform because I wasn't active on social media. I'm a little more active now than I have been in the past, but I didn't really have that outlet to speak about it. So I was bottling up a lot of these issues. And so now I have a platform to speak about it, and it's freeing. We forget that, carrying certain things and holding in certain things, it makes our load, and what I mean by load, I mean our mind. It makes that heavier to carry around because we're fighting internal battles and we don't have that outlet to release it. And when you don't have that outlet to release it, it takes that toll on you. I know I've said it, I know I've repeated this phrase so many times, but it really takes that toll on you and it weighs you down. Some people, we have outlets, temporary outlets. Like, one of the most common you'll hear from athletes is, they turn to their sport to get their mind off things. And that's great, but those are temporary outlets. I'm a former athlete myself, maybe not professional, maybe not collegiate, but my entire life has been around sports. So I've always been the type of person, I'm dealing with something in my life, I can turn to go play basketball, I can get ready, prepare for a track meet, I can go play football, I can do whatever it is to take my mind off of that, because now I'm in a place of happiness. Now I'm in a place, I'm in a sanctuary. I'm in my happy place. But at the end of the day, once we are back home, once we are getting ready to go to bed, once we are preparing for the next day, those thoughts reoccur. And so now it's still this constant battle, it's this constant struggle because it wasn't properly addressed. Yes, we had a pacifier, and that pacifier being whatever it was that took your mind off of that thing. But once that pacifier is gone, you're crying again, because now you're remembering the pain. You're remembering what it was that caused that hurt. Now you remember what it was that's weighing you down. And because it wasn't properly addressed, you have to deal with it. And I'm not going to stay here for too long. This episode was not planned. Y'all know how much I hate unplanned episodes. I had another episode planned to release today, but I felt like I had to speak about this album. I hope that you all, we all go through whatever battles in our lives. I hope that me detailing the things that I've gone through, me being open with you about the things that I'm going through, encourage you to seek help. It don't have to be counseling. It don't have to be therapy. Speak to a parent, speak to a friend, wherever the case it may be. Just understand that you don't have to go through things alone, and you shouldn't go through things alone. It's power in opening yourself up to people. And yes, I know it's hard because people have ulterior motives. Sometimes people just don't care, and so we are guarded in who we choose to project our energy upon. But find that outlet, wherever that outlet may be. Maybe you start podcasting, maybe you start doing music, wherever the case it may be. Search for that outlet so that you're not walking around with these things weighing you down. Before we get out of here, I do want to say, with the release of this album, it should have been with the release of the last album, or the album actually prior to that, To Pimp a Butterfly, we stopped comparing Kendrick and Drake. Let's be honest. What they doing over there is not what's going on over here. And by a long shot, it's not even close. Drake is a great artist. He kills every single feature that he's on. But let's be real. Since Nothing Was the Same, every Drake album since then has been the same, ironically. And I'm not even trying to joke. I just came up with my head as I was speaking. But what Drake does for the culture is not what Kendrick does for the culture. Actually, Drake is not even for the culture. I would say it's a black thing, but I can't even say that because J. Cole moves the culture more than Drake does, and they're both mixed. But what's going on in Canada is not going on in Compton. And so we have to understand that Drake is not of this culture. Anybody who poses with blackface is not of this culture. I know y'all love the man. I know I'm in the minority in how I feel about Drake, and that's fine. I still listen to Drake music. I still like Drake music. Drake makes great music. But as far as albums and what we offer to this culture, he hasn't been top tier for a while. And we have to address that. For a while, it was Drake, Kendrick, Cole. And I still think that's true. But when we speak about albums, we have to be honest with ourselves. And I know Drake is barred from any people speaking down upon him because of the status that he's made, and that is he's star level, he's superstar level. Drake, whatever he touches, it goes gold at the minimum. And so I understand that. But remove all that and let's dissect albums together. What Kendrick is offering, this man doesn't even come close to it. So let's start being honest with ourselves, man. It's not the same. It is not the same. I know he's walking around with braids now. I know he like to remind us that he got family in Memphis. I know he like to remind us he spent a lot of time in Houston. I know he like to pair himself with a lot of black people. But what Drake is offering, as far as our culture is concerned, is not what Kendrick is offering. Drake doesn't have a To Pimp a Butterfly. Now, I don't mean the album just good music. I mean To Pimp a Butterfly. Go back and listen to the album. From the very first song, the intro of that song, the sample that song contains, to the very last song, the very last voice we hear in that album. Drake does not have that. Go to Damn, play that from front to back. Drake does not have that. And he damn sure don't have a Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. So let's stop comparing the two. Because one is of our culture and one is a parasite. That's the Speak One Piece podcast for this week. I know that was spicy, but I'm out.